Welcome to the Diablo Podcast, Episode 2. This is your host, Flux, and this week we have a really good show. It's the second half of the Max Schaefer interview. Part 1 was last week, and in that one, Max and I spoke about his time at Blizzard North and the early days and creation of Diablo 1 and 2 and 3, and got some secret new information about that. And this week we're going to hear part 2 of that Max interview, which is mostly focused on Torchlight and his current projects at Runic Games with Torchlight 2, and other discussions about how they're making games so quickly there and how he sees the industry changing and other RPGs he's following and all kinds of cool stuff. That kicks off at about 32 minutes into this podcast, and it runs for about 29 minutes. Before that, you get to hear myself and my lovely co-webmaster and co-podcast host, Ellie, talk about recent events in the Diablo community. There was a lot of news this week, and we summarize a couple of events, a couple of news bits, and talk about our opinions on them. And that's a little free form. We get into some interesting discussions, and we laugh a lot, and we make some really bad secret cow level sound effects. So enjoy that, and we'll be back next week with some cool stuff, probably about BlizzCon. And see you then. This is your host, Flux, and my co-host, Ellie.
Hello.
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 As you can hear, Ellie is Australian.
Good day.
Born and raised in Sydney, was it?
That's right.
No, okay. It's funny because one of our run-throughs last week, Ellie and I were just chatting about various things, trying to decide what to put on the podcast. And one of them, I just joked around, "You're from Australia, right, Ellie?" And she did her silly accent. But we didn't actually include that on the podcast, finally, because we're much too professional to just joke around and play silly games, right?
Yeah.
As I'm proving. And then once the podcast went live, a few people in comments were like, "Hey, is Ellie Australian?"
I didn't think my accent was remotely Australian at all, but apparently it is. Australians listening to this will be thinking, "God, that's an awful Australian accent."
Well, that's what you always say about my English accent. So
that is terrible. That's like Dick Van Dyke off Thingamajig, Mary Poppins. Lovely. It's awful.
Okay. Where were you actually born, my dear?
Cambridge.
And you grew up in that area? Or you moved around?
No, moved around sort of Bristol which is on the other side of the country, to London. I know you only know where London is. So
I don't even know where London is.
Oh, excellent. Well,
in the middle. It's the middle, right, by that big river?
Yes, the Thames. God.
Also known in America as the Thames.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine that. No, yes. So no, I didn't grow up around that area.
And you do not have one of those specific regional dialects that we hear about where people can tell what, neighborhood someone grew up in.
No, I don't think so.
You moved around enough.
Yes, a lot, really. So I think maybe I have a little West Country accent now because I've been over here for a few years. Maybe. I don't know. But on the whole, no. I think I'm without accent.
And as we mentioned last time, you were in Edinburgh, also known as Edinburgh, also known as something, who knows what it is. How do you say it?
Edinburgh.
That's where you lived in the late 90s when the Diablo 1 website began and when I started working on the website with you. So yeah. Obviously you picked up some Scottish, in theory?
I don't think so, actually.
Just to pretend as if anyone cares, I was born in New York, in America.
Were you?
Syracuse, New York. My parents lived when I was born.
All right. I didn't know that at all.
That's what they tell me anyway. I mean, I don't remember, but I've seen baby photos of me with these huge mounds of snow that are, 5 times my little infant height. But frankly, I think pretty much all babies look just alike, so it could be anybody for all I know. They can't prove that's me.
And
then my parents lived for a time in North Carolina, and I no doubt picked up some a beautiful Southern drawl. I can't say horrible. We have Southern listeners, perhaps. Can people in the South run podcasts? Yeah. Yes, of course they can.
Oh, you're trying to offend everyone today.
Yeah, I know. It's only the Irish who can't operate podcasts. I'm sorry. No, wait, what? Anyway, I lived in North Carolina for some time, North Carolina, And I lived in Las Vegas for a couple of years after my parents got divorced. Then I lived in Texas for a couple of years. This is all before I was 11, by the way. I moved around quite a bit. And I've been in California since I was 15 or so. Southern California and now Northern California for the last 6 or 7 years. And I used to visit my grandparents every summer in the Midwest. He lived near St. Louis and much more of a Midwestern drawl. So my accent is probably somewhat of a mongrelization, as is yours, Ellie.
Probably, yeah. I don't know. You just sound American to me, so
Well, you just sound English to me, so
Well, there you go then. There you go.
And speaking of our lovely accents, everyone first heard them on the podcast last week. And I thought it went pretty well. We got a lot of feedback, and I asked for people to list positive and negative things, hoping for constructive criticism more than you guys suck. And we actually just mostly got positive feedback. I was surprised.
Yeah, I was really surprised, actually. Maybe people didn't listen to it all.
Maybe they just skipped to the Max part and didn't hear our ramblings.
Although somebody has typed out an entire transcript.
We have. One of our site readers, Varquain, God knows how you actually pronounce it. I know how to spell it, though, who's done a lot of really useful stuff in the news for us, typed out an entire transcript somehow. He said he listened to the whole thing on 33% speed, which I guess helps him to type the transcript.
Right.
And he said that he's now going to always and thereafter think of myself, Max, and you as being drunk during the podcast.
That was very dedicated of him to do that, wasn't it, really? I don't think anyone would want to read our portion. They definitely want to read Max's, but I don't think our ramblings is worth documenting, is it really?
I would hope not, as the last 5 minutes have probably proven, but there he typed it all out. So that's actually going to be on the website by the time this goes up, and he's actually already done a transcript of the Max portion of this episode as well. And we're going to discuss a little bit of the week's news here, but just briefly. We don't want to read, you guys have read it on the website. We don't want to just reread what's on the website.
But we did have one suggestion feedback last week to say that they would be interested in hearing us discussing some of the more hotter news items of the week. So perhaps we didn't really do that last week, did we?
Well, we started to discuss the news. The biggest news point we were going to discuss last week was the Diablo drought, which didn't seem very, podcastogenic. Let's talk about how there's nothing to talk about. It's like,
Yeah. But we have stuff to talk about this week.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. So we're not opposed to talking about the news, but we don't want to do it unless we can say something a little bit different or give it some more opinion or a different spin than it might have had on the website. And one of the things I thought would be news, but you weren't so interested in, there was a fake hoax sort of interview post about a guy claiming to be a Diablo III playtester who basically said the game sucked, and he sort of gave spoilers about the plot, and generally people didn't really buy it so much. And what did you saw the news post, Ellie?
Well, he said the game sucked, so obviously it was a fake because the game doesn't suck. So I think I read the first few paragraphs and then shut off from it immediately and thought, file it away, dismiss it. It's BS.
As they say.
Yes. Polite language.
It was amusing. We were going to talk about, the week before, we considered talking about a box art had been posted by a Polish retailer, which for about 20 minutes seemed like it might be a real leak until our fan art knowledgeable mastery is this guy Holy Knight who works on the site with us. And he immediately recognized it as a World of Warcraft piece of fan art, which we found the link to on DeviantArt very shortly. But that was realistic enough that there was some debate, and it popped up on the Battle.net forums, and people were saying maybe this is real, etc. Even though it seems unlikely they would leak the box art in advance, but I guess, stranger things have happened. But it was just funny that actually got some traction, whereas this much more detailed, I was a D3 playtester thing, we have a big forum post about it, and that's linked in this the news post for this episode on the DiabloPodcast.com site, where just almost everybody immediately said this is obviously a load of crap.
Yeah, but we still posted it anyway.
Well, yeah, it was newsworthy. Obviously we don't have to agree or disagree or have an opinion on everything we post. It's we're there to inform the fans, and they can read stuff and make up their own minds.
Yeah.
If if you only want the news that Blizzard posts, you can just read the Blizzard site or some of the other fan sites, or as you call them,
Fawn sites.
fawn sites. Yes. Now that we've taken digs at everyone, including Blizzard, let's move right along, shall we? Okay,
Right.
yeah. So another interesting tidbit is that we got the BlizzCon. Was there anything else? I think that was it, right?
BlizzCon, that's what we wanted to talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah. And BlizzCon tickets were just announced this week. They announced the show about a month ago, which is earlier than usual. It seems like it's been more like the summertime before they've announced it previously.
Well, I think they probably need to give people a little bit longer to save up the extra money because the ticket price has gone up again, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe it was $100 in '08 and '09, and then it was $150 last year in 2010, and now it's $175.
No details of what's actually going to be at the event, so we can't see if the price has just increased or whether they're putting on a lot more stuff.
Well, maybe like a water slide or something, or clowns with balloons.
Well, that's worth an extra £25 bucks, isn't it?
Of course, they could
clown?
they could have like Murloc clowns. They can make you Murloc balloon animals, and perhaps Jay Wilson will make his famous pancakes.
Hmm.
That would be delightful. But I think they could probably charge, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say 500 a ticket, but they could certainly charge 200 without. I think they'll probably sell out in 30 seconds flat again this year.
Yeah, I think they could increase that price and they'd still sell out within minutes.
I'm sure Blizzard has information on where people, how far away people come to get to BlizzCon. But I mean, most people are, needing a plane or at least a long drive, and then you've got to get a hotel for 2 or 3 or 4 nights.
Yeah.
So food and, if people buy $500 in the Blizzard store of, inflatable Murlocs and crap. So I think the ticket's probably, just a small amount. $25 more on the ticket really doesn't even make a difference compared to everything else you're buying.
Well, I don't know. In this day and age, it's $175 is quite a lot of money just to get in. And the food is pretty pricey in there as well.
It's not as bad as you were at that was well said. You were at E3 a few times in LA.
Yes.
And the food there was just obscene. I mean, it was like airport food prices, like
yes.
$7 for bottled water and such.
Yeah, we soon got wise to that, and we'd pack our rucksacks up with food. It was just extortionate.
And that was back in, 01, 02, 03, 04 time range, when the LA Convention Center was nowhere. There was nothing around it but warehouses and a couple of hotels. It was just horrible.
Mm.
And apparently, I haven't been there in like 5 years, but they vastly upgraded. They built the new Staples Center there, which is where the Lakers and the Clippers and the Los Angeles Kings play their sporting events. And they have lots of concerts, and now apparently it's a whole tourist area. They have all kinds of really nice restaurants and bars and sports bars, and there's clubs, and so I think now it'd be nice. You can walk across the street and there's 20 places to eat.
Mm.
But back in the day, it was just, you could walk about half a mile and get to a 7-Eleven, or there was like a hot dog cart out front, but it was just very much sort of an office park corporate area with just warehouses and parking lots, and much like that pretty much sums up Southern California in a nutshell, I guess, but it was horrible back then.
Yeah, and Sony have their own as well. They have a fanfare 3-day event, and that's $140 for the top ticket, and that gives you access for all 3 days. And there's also a buffet on the last day that you get access to.
They have multiple level. Is the cheapest ticket like $50 and you only get to look through a window or something, or?
Well, no, they have like day passes.
Ah.
And they're about $40. That's in Las Vegas, so that's quite a draw anyway. I mean, nothing against LA, but I remember when the rumor went round that BlizzCon, was it last year or the year before, might be in Las Vegas. I was really excited about the thought of going. Yeah, I'm very disappointed when I heard it was back in LA. Just probably because I've never been to Las Vegas, so I probably look at it as a wide-eyed tourist, and I've been to LA so many times. It's it's not as new or exciting. But the interesting thing I saw about the images that went online when they announced the tickets was the prominence of Diablo on this early artwork for the event.
Yeah, that was certainly something that a lot of fans picked up on immediately. They had the little picture of the tickets, and they kind of have 3 tickets visible. With StarCraft and Warcraft and then Diablo, but if Diablo was in front. But I looked back at past years, and Diablo was also in front at the '09 BlizzCon on that little tickets picture. However, as you say, the larger image on the main BlizzCon page, there's a huge picture of Diablo across the top of the page, and the Warcraft and the Starcraft figures are kind of squeezed over on the sides, where you can't even see them if you have a smaller resolution, I would imagine.
Mm.
But it was very clear that Diablo is much more prominent in this year's imagery. Whether or not that means it'll be more prominent at the show is open to debate.
Well, I think it has to be. It has to be. It's the imminent release, isn't it, at that point?
But I certainly hope so.
Well, the beta will surely be underway by then, will it not?
If they have hopes to make a 2011 date, it will definitely have to be.
Well, the conference call that's due to go ahead in May, that may well be the announcement of the beta starting in X weeks or something. Do you not think?
They in the previous conference call in February, they did say we hope to have a beta announcement. I think they might have actually said we will have a beta announcement, not just hope to. I think unless disaster has befallen their development procedure and progress, that they will at least say, it looks pretty good. We really hope to start the beta within the next few weeks, which could be 4 months, knowing Blizzard. But I do think the odds seem pretty good on that.
Yeah, I do. I think that it'll be, by the time BlizzCon comes along, we'll be in beta by then.
It's sort of ironic I've been to the last 3 BlizzCons to cover Diablo primarily. I'm not much of a follower of their other games or of Blizzard in general. If some other company made Diablo, I'd probably be happier doing that. Although I guess the quality wouldn't necessarily be as good.
No.
But if BlizzCon comes in October and the Diablo 3 beta is well underway, I'm not even sure if I would go to BlizzCon, because it seems like we'd be getting all the cool information from the game itself, and so much of BlizzCon is now streamed via their virtual ticket. You can see all the panels anyway, and all the interviews go up online.
Yeah, I must admit, from my point of view, the years I've been, and last year I was here with the DirecTV, which was really good, and I actually got quite a bit from it, because usually when I go, obviously I'm going for the site, so I'm going to I don't really have time to kick back and enjoy it so much. So from my point of view, last year was just as good for me. Yeah.
I get most of the people, as fans, as people who read the site know, I post these rather lengthy write-ups about pretty much everything, and those can only, just once or twice. People have noticed them occasionally. There's a lot of words. MOAR words.
More.
And that's not possible without playing the game. So I try to spend as much time as possible actually playing. And that's why I would really go. The panels are on the internet, so it's not like you need to be there for them so much. But if there's a beta, hopefully I will be playing it, and if not me, there'll be certainly lots and lots of other people playing it and giving us information, screenshots and such, assuming there's no NDA, as they have not had on their recent betas. Everyone else seems to be very interested in going to BlizzCon. At least the fans are very curious about it.
And definitely people can't sell on their tickets. That's definitely, you can't do that this time.
You can, but you have to give them, when you buy the tickets, you have to put a name for each ticket. You can't just put 4 tickets under your own name. And you need a photo ID of that person's name to pick up the ticket. They don't actually have to be there. Plenty of people pick up tickets for their friends or the like, but you have to have their ID to do so. And unless you've got an ID photo printing press in your basement, you probably need a real person that corresponds to that name. And you can't really scalp them in advance, because you need to actually go to Anaheim to pick them up. So, in theory, if you really trusted a scalper, you could buy a ticket from them, and if they had an extra one, they could pick it up and give it to you before the event's in line. But if they don't come through, or they sell it to somebody else, are you going to go to you're going to go all the way to LA and hope this pans out if you don't know the person pretty well? It seems like that's kind of a risky endeavor. It's been funny in recent years, because Blizzard has run a number of giveaways to give out tickets, and we had, I think, 5 of those 2 years in a row in 08 and 09. And it was really hard to give them away, because by the time they give you the tickets, it's like, it was a month or 6 weeks before the show, and people can't, most people can't just drop everything and have a free weekend plus a few more days to take off to LA in a month. People have work or school or family issues.
Yeah.
So it's funny, we have these incredibly coveted prizes that we've had a great deal of trouble giving away. We ran a contest, I think, 2 years ago, and like the top three, we had 3 winners, and none of them could go. And basically, I ended up emailing everybody who entered the contest saying, do you want the ticket? Because none of the winners can take them. And I still think we had to give away 1 or 2 of them in our PALS forum. We finally found some takers there. The other interesting thing about BlizzCon is that fans have a lot of questions about it always. We see people, what's it like to go? What's the location like? What is it? Do you get to meet Blizzard staffers when you're there, et cetera? And those are a lot of, people see all the stuff on the panels and the videos, but they don't often you don't really get the sense for what it's like to be there so much. So hopefully we are going to have a podcast in the next 3 weeks, and I'm going to be talking with a couple of people who have been to the last BlizzCon or two and giving you guys a lot of details about what it's like to be there and, who you see and what you do and the location and logistics and other such things. But then largely focusing on the content and what it's like to play the demos and other such things. So we'll be looking for fan questions for that, and I think it'll be an interesting chat. I believe the last BlizzCon you were at was 2008, right, Ellen? And that was just after, because you were at the WWI in June of 2008 in Paris.
Oh, that was incredible.
And then just 3 months later, you were off to BlizzCon for even more of the same.
Yeah. Yeah, but nothing really could top the WWI, actually. That was brilliant.
Being there for the announcement and hearing the Tristram theme played and all of that.
Yes, and with all the other fans, yeah, that was great because the excitement was palpable,
And we actually knew it was going to be Diablo III, I think the night before, right? We posted an item. Paul posted it saying, we have sources who have confirmed to us, sort of thing.
Yeah, that went down well.
Did it?
Yes.
They were thrilled.
Yes, we were talked to when we got to the event.
Yes. Well, were you 100% sure it was going to be Diablo III? I mean, they're doing this countdown in the theater.
Yes. Yeah, no, I knew it was Diablo 3.
Were you 99% or 100%? You were absolutely positive.
100. I would have put 100 pennies down on a bet.
But it was still exciting, even though everyone else there obviously wasn't as certain as you were, if they were certain at all.
It was exciting because I knew I was going to get to see it.
Yeah.
That was, that was the excitement for me. I was actually going to start to get to see some gameplay or cinematics or something.
And you liked it. You were impressed with what you saw?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Of course I was.
Can you imagine if it had been arse, as you say?
If it had been arse, I would have been not so happy. But as it happens, it was very good. So I was very happy, yes.
Also in the news last week was Blizzard starting off their newest marketing social media campaign, where they're asking fans to tweet a little dream of you, basically. And you're making jokes or pretty much anything you want as long as you put the hashtags for one of their 3 games into it. And the ones they like, they're retweeting via their @Diablo and @Warcraft and @Starcraft Twitter feeds. And there's been some concerns, my concerns, that I thought it was a little overtly, blatantly advertise our games for us and you'll get nothing out of it but a warm, happy feeling inside.
Well, if you can get away with it, I guess. But usually, I mean, I know what you mean. The Twitter one, there's really nothing at the end of it for the user. There's no incentive, really. With the Facebook ones, at least they were, as you call them, the Facebook ransom. At least they're giving away some eye candy. But it seems that other publishers are doing exactly the same. BioWare did one. Theirs was a little different, though. Ahead of Dragon Age 2, they made a game on Facebook, Dragon Age Legends, and if you played through that with your friends, you would get items that you could then have access to in Dragon Age 2. So that spread the word around, obviously, your network, but you also had a bit of fun with it. Other ones like EA are doing one for, is it Battlefield? And if they get 1 million likes, then they'll release a video. And you kind of think, well, if you didn't get 1 million likes, you wouldn't release the video then. You're going to say, of course you're still going to release it because you want to get the column inches, don't you?
Yeah, it's a little disingenuous, I guess. It's like we're going to stop promoting our game if we don't get enough likes. It's like,
yeah.
I think it's the other way around.
But
They
it
should.
works. It works every time. All of these campaigns that I've seen, Tryon did it with Rift. EA's visitor likes are going up and up all day long. So it does work. So why not, really? Why not do it?
Funny, I mentioned this in our chat. It's been annoying me because I go through the Twitter feed every day and look for the good posts and and replies and do a lot of clicking back and forth and pasting of posts to make news items on the Diablo or Diablo.incgamers.com site, where people don't have to read the Twitter feed and they can see all of the interesting, newsworthy posts, and then they have conversation about them in the comments. And that's become a little more annoying because now I have to click through. There's just all this, what I would call it spam. Obviously, I think Bashiok or whoever's updating them would disagree, but it's just these little jokes. I'm the Lord of Destruction. I'm the Lord of Hatred. I'm the Lord of eating waffles or whatever. People are twittering these things, which is of course a lie because I am actually the Lord of eating waffles, and I haven't. You won't see me bragging about it on Twitter. The true mark of the Lord of Waffles, Ellie, you don't Twitter about it.
I know.
It's the rule of the Lord of Waffles Club. Yeah. But I mentioned that in our chat. I wasn't sure if I was the only one it was bothering, or I was the only one who actually read the Twitter feed in the first place, because maybe everybody else just waits for me to put them in the news. But in our live chat last Friday, I mentioned it, and a number of other people, basically said, I'm about to unfollow this damn at Diablo because I'm sick of all these stupid spam news things that have no value to me.
Do you know how effective it's been on Twitter?
At annoying me or effective at something else?
Of getting followers.
They really haven't increased their Twitter followers much. It seemed like Diablo went very quickly from nothing to, it only begun, I think, last fall. And they got to about 40K or 35K very quickly, and then it's just been very incremental growth since then. They're no Charlie Sheen, so.
No, what did you do, 1 million in a day or something like that?
Yeah, and then it was at 3 million in a few weeks. I don't know if I think it's probably leveled off, at least I hope so. The appetite for Americans to watch celebrities do stupid things is impossible to fathom for me, but I think a lot of people follow the Blizzard Diablo stuff through our little blue tracker on the main page. And also in the main page, we have a blue tracker for the Blizzard forum posts on Battle.net for Bashiok's occasional comments. And one of them, he made a post. I noticed his post was, something like, is that you, Dad? And then if you click through the whole thread was people complaining about how much they hated the Diablo hashtag's promotion and how many stupid posts were churning up from it. So clearly there's a somewhat of a groundswell amongst the hardcore fans. The people who are really following it are annoyed as hell by it. They're running this promotion not for hardcore fans. It's for, it's for casual fans. It's much like their Facebook page. Like you're saying, all these companies are expanding into the social media advertising and marketing. So what do you think about all this facial marketing? That's something else. What do you think about all this Twitbook and facial marketing lately, Ellie?
No. It's the friends of those people that they're trying to reach. So if you comment on their Facebook page or their Twitter, it feeds it to the people that are following them. That's the people that they're after. And they're assuming that the people that follow them are also interested in gaming and possibly Diablo 3.
So Ellie, we see this social media outreach stuff, and they're obviously trying to get casual fans via Twitter and Facebook. And the more hardcore fans aren't really pleased with that. Should we care? Obviously, Blizzard can't tailor all their marketing to people reading fan sites because most of us are going to buy the game the first day it's released, if not sooner. There's a reason they have Mr. T doing World of Warcraft commercials.
Yeah.
And those are successful. They say they get really good click-throughs and really good fan feedback because they're trying to market outside the box. People on fan sites already like the damn game in the first place.
It's an excellent way to market a product. It's completely free.
Yeah, and I think also, on top of it being free, Blizzard has plenty of money to buy ads if they want, but I think people are kind of trained to tune out, advertising. People are, even if you see ads, you kind of, it's another ad, your eye just kind of skims over it. Whereas if your friend is actually telling you something or it's on his Twitter page, you're going to pay a little more attention to it. So I guess Blizzard has to weigh the consequences of sort of alienating or annoying the people who who are already really interested in the game versus getting more eyeballs who don't know about it.
Mm.
And from their actions, it's pretty clear where they're weighing that scale. They want more people. They want new people.
Mm.
Coming up now is part 2 of my interview with Max Schaefer. In part 1, which you heard on the first episode of our podcast, he revealed to us for the first time that it was going to be an MMO in the initial iterations. Who knows if that would have lasted if they kept working on it longer, but obviously it didn't. And this interview picks up immediately after that part, and it's more about Torchlight and their work on Torchlight 2 and how they were able to make the game so quickly, and some more about Max's general thoughts on RPGs. And Torchlight 2 is coming out later this summer, Ellie. You played Torchlight 1 a little. It wasn't your favorite game in the world. Are you looking forward to Torchlight 2 more than the first one?
I didn't have anything bad to say about it. I thought it was a great wee title. But yeah, no, it wasn't my favourite game in the world. And I am looking forward to 2, and I'm looking forward to the MMO beyond that, yeah.
And most of what Max, he's not really giving that many specifics about it yet because they're still working on it so furiously.
Mm.
But much of what I said, when I cited some comments and some criticisms fans had of TL1, we're going to call it TL because we're cool like that.
Yeah, right on.
And what fans said about TL1 was that it was just not that big. Obviously everybody wanted multiplayer. But additionally, they wanted, more progression, more dungeons, bigger areas, better skill balancing, more items, all that sort of thing. And Max's main retort was that was a project they made literally from blank computers and nothing to shipping in 11 months, which is, as we joke, Blizzard can't get their trousers off in 11 months.
No, you joke incessantly about Blizzard's trousers.
I do not.
No,
Jay Wilson's trousers.
I'm removing myself from this Jay Wilson's trousers reference completely.
You're removing your trousers from Jay Wilson? What was that?
You're on your own when it comes to trousers.
I'm going to edit one word out of your previous sentence, and then we'll hear what you really think. So yes, obviously Torchlight is much quicker made than any Diablo games, or certainly, as Max jokes, than Hellgate London was. But that's one of the things that's been interesting is how they're able to make it so quickly and to have it be of pretty good quality. It's not as massive as Diablo III, but they didn't start working on it in 2006 either. So
no, it was a good wee title. I would recommend anyone play it. If they're looking forward to 2, then you may as well grab 1. It must be in the bargain buckets by now. Is it downloadable?
I mentioned this with Max in the interview, so there's no reason for us to go through it now. But yeah, you can download it now for $15 for the Xbox or for the PC, and it's on torchlightgame.com, and they have it through Steam as well.
Yeah, it's definitely worth playing. I enjoyed it.
But yeah, so anyway, you guys are going to hear that Max segment coming up immediately after this, and that will be the end of the podcast this week. It's about half an hour with me and Max, and I hope you enjoy.
Bye. Moo.
Moo. Moo.
Moo.
Are you ready for Torchlight?
Let's do it.
What is your official job title at Runic Games?
I am the CEO.
And co-founder?
And co-founder, yes. Torchlight, Runic Games came out of the wreckage of Flagship Studios, and it was the group that was making the game called Mythos at Flagship. And Mythos was almost ready to be released when Flagship closed down, so I had been working as a executive producer on Mythos for the couple years before Flagship shut down, so I knew the team really well. And when Flagship blew up, Eric Schaefer, my brother, myself, Travis Baldry, and Peter Hu, our network guy, decided we were going to resurrect that team and start anew with that group and kind of pick up where we left off with Mythos.
And they were all up in Seattle already. They were kind of Flagship North, right?
Correct.
So they basically just stayed where they were, and you guys are kind of integrating more with them.
Yes, exactly.
What does Eric do, by the way, just out of curiosity?
He is, as we speak, deeply buried in spreadsheets doing item design and item balance for Torchlight 2.
Yeah, because I was wondering, because I mean, he's kind of, I saw you mention in one of your Torchlight interviews, he reminded me that he kind of invented the whole system of like progressive random loot in Diablo 1.
Yeah.
That was really what he worked on.
Yep, and that's kind of his specialty, to this day.
So he's still doing the math and the spreadsheets and.
Yep.
Interesting. Maybe I can get him on a chat one time. I've always had interesting questions about how that worked in Diablo 1 and Diablo 2.
Sure. He rarely does interviews though. So.
Yeah, he's elusive. He's very chatty in person, but not so much on the internet.
Yep.
So, and then on Torchlight, you said you didn't really have a title. Everyone was just a team member on Torchlight.
Yeah, you did what had to be done at the time. Obviously we have people who are animators and people who are programmers and engineers and stuff. But it being a relatively small team, people wear multiple hats, and nowadays with digital distribution and stuff, it's kind of more in a situation like ours with a little company like ours. It's more incumbent upon us to have direct deals with people like Steam and stuff like that. So there's a lot more business and contracts and things like that going on with Runic than certainly we had to deal with at Blizzard. And even to some extent, Flagship Studios was a bigger company, and we had more dedicated business people. So that's a lot of what I'm doing right now. Is just making sure our business arrangements are in place and so that when we finish a game, we can actually sell it.
That which is obviously helpful.
Yes.
And so
we're acutely aware of income these days.
Yeah.
The basics of businesses.
Yeah, and Torchlight too, so it's the same thing basically. You're not a producer or whatever. Everyone is just kind of wearing multiple hats and.
Right.
So, just because you mentioned the sales, you recently said that I believe the first day of the Xbox was your best sale day ever for Torchlight.
Yeah. No, it was. It was. We were fortunate enough to be able to be part of Microsoft's House Party promotion, which is something they do every year, where they highlight 5 different games, and each week they kind of put the spotlight on that game. So we kind of got the eyes of the Xbox world put on us for the first week, and that was really great for us. And yeah, we're really happy so far with the Xbox sales and really the whole experience of getting it onto the Xbox.
Have you guys released figures for that, or that's confidential?
It's confidential, but they're doing well.
I think you said you'd sold what? You'd sold over 1 million Torchlights total?
We're getting very, very close.
Oh, okay. So,
and I don't know. It would have to go up and total up all the different various distributors and all that. But we're getting very close.
Okay. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
And obviously you have hopes for Torchlight 2 to do as well or better. The multiplayer aspect.
I fully expect Torchlight 2 to do better. It's better in every respect than Torchlight 1. From the look of it, the feel of it, the sound of it, the depth of it. And so I really hope and feel like it's going to do very well.
Well, people are excited about it. When I asked questions for Max Schaefer, I got quite a few about Torchlight too. So
cool.
It's not they didn't all just want you to pick through the bones of past experiences.
Right. Good. And I'm not getting as many Flagship Studios questions anymore, so things are obviously going better these days.
Well, you guys have been pretty forthcoming about that, and Bill
Sure.
just like a year ago or 6 months ago, Bill did a really long interview, I think with Gamma Sutra about that.
Yeah.
And it was almost it was painful to read. I mean, he was really talking about the personal attacks he got and everything.
Right. I mean, there's no sense hiding. It's part of our history now, and something we learned a lot from, and hopefully we'll never make those mistakes again. I know that we have talked about it a lot and analyzed the hell out of it and figured out, exactly where we could have turned things around. I mean, a lot of it was just random circumstance that happened to us that was unrelated to our game development, and a lot of it was our inability to adapt with the changing circumstances. So yeah, we never really minded talking about it because it's there and it's part of our history, and we'd rather just be upfront about it and move on from it than kind of always have it hiding there in the background.
Yeah, and just because it ties into that topic, the whole issue of iteration and the time it takes to design games.
Right.
You told me last time that if you'd had 6, 9, 12 more months, you think Hellgate could have really turned out well?
Yeah, I think with 9 to 12 more months that we could have polished it up and made a really, really compelling and fun game.
And so the problem in iteration is people often complain about Blizzard games. Obviously, you were there with Diablo 2 as well, which took a little longer than hoped.
Right.
is that there's just so much to do, and then you guys, the iteration, and it seems like projects are really slow at the start. Like it's really hard to fix on the ideas you want to set with.
Yeah, and you have to iterate and you have to put the time into it. And at Blizzard, since we had between Blizzard South and North, just a string of successful games, we had the leeway and freedom to do that. And at Flagship Studios, we were a new company, and when you run out of money, you run out of money.
Yeah.
There's just nothing you can do about it, and that's what happened to us.
And it seemed like what I've often expressed surprise about, and I've seen fans as well on comments and posts about your new game and your new studio, is just how quickly you guys are making things happen. And you've just been able to avoid sort of getting stuck in this iteration treadmill.
Yep.
You're deciding what you want to do, and then you're by God doing it.
And we're doing it in achievable steps. We're not trying to come out day one and make the world's biggest massive multiplayer AAA hit franchise. We want to start slowly and get it right, and do it at a sustainable pace. World of Warcraft was Blizzard's 10th game or something, and we at Blizzard North at Condor, we started out making Game Gear and Game Boy games, and by the time we were around to Diablo 1, we had already shipped 5 titles, 5 SKUs by that point, and of different stuff, and there really is a lot of value in having that experience before you try to do something huge. And I think at Blizzard did a good job of ramping up to making that sort of game. And I think a lot of, Flagship Studios was just one of many examples of development teams putting together a star team and getting a boatload of money and trying to hit a home run your first time at bat. And I think that we're taking a much more sane and rational approach this time around, just by stepping our way there rather than trying to get there right off the bat.
And you seem to be working up, obviously getting bigger with Torchlights. And Torchlight 2 is multiplayer, and you guys have talked a lot about Torchlight and MMO, which would be multiplayer or something.
Right. Yeah, we don't really know what it means yet, but it's something we want to do. The MMO. So yeah, we're the next step for us obviously is multiplayer, and Torchlight 2 will showcase that.
And I asked you this last time. I'll save you the bad Russian accent, but I'm a mad Russian billionaire, and I want to give you. I have to try it. I want to give you $1 million. Sorry, I think I'm doing more. I don't know what that is. I can't.
That was vaguely Russian. That was.
I think it was Borat actually, but I'll leave that aside. So the Russian Mark Cuban crazy man. Okay, not crazy, but he's got a lot of money, and he wants to give you $150 million in 5 years to make a ginormous Torchlight MMO that's sort of a WoW style, everything to everyone huge game. What do you tell him?
I tell him we're probably not going to do it. No matter what the money is, because part of the whole success of Torchlight is that it isn't trying to be everything to everybody. We're kind of stripping out everything except for the core game experience that we're looking for. We're deliberately trying to shrink the feature sets and shrink the ambitions for revolutionary new stuff, because we want what we do to be polished and slick and do it well and do it quickly. We're not getting any younger at this point, and 5 and 6 year development cycles are they're a creative dead end kind of. We really feel like that both the customers, the game players, and the developers benefit from a faster turnaround, and we're doing our iteration now in shipped product, not just behind the scenes at the studio. I don't know. I think things are changing in the game world, and they're certainly changing among the people I'm working with, such that we want to do things faster. We don't want to make the next 6 year, $100 million crazy sweeping MMO. We want to get something out in a reasonable amount of time, and in the style of Torchlight. Everything's about being a little bit smaller but faster and more nimble now.
And is any part of that influenced by, there have been any number of giant MMOs that have not been very successful.
Right.
to put it kindly.
Yes. And absolutely, it's influenced by that.
Obviously, that's a lot of eggs in one basket. If it's 5 years and you come out with tabula rasa or something like that, and it just flops.
Right. It's a serious fear of ours that would happen. But there was no single player tabula rasa and to start with.
Yeah.
You have to kind of build it up and figure out what you were making. And so it's that's just one of many examples.
Yeah.
Obviously, Hellgate London was one, and there's tons of them that never even get released. So even if we were guaranteed of success, I don't know that we want to launch into something that won't release for 5-6 years.
Yeah, I can definitely see the appeal to that. I mean, I enjoy. I'm a novelist as well as a blogger and a website writer and such, and it's just a lot more fun to spend half an hour writing something and have it be online and get comments on it.
Right.
And working on a novel, it's just you for 6 or 12 or 18 months.
Right.
And it's really tough to keep motivated and not keep your system going, and with no one seeing it but you and maybe a few friends.
Right.
And I guess that's kind of what it would be like making your huge MMO.
Yeah, and the other thing is, with MMOs, there's the big expectation that a lot of your development happens after you release it.
Yeah.
And if you put too much detail and too much effort into making the release of the game, a lot of developers tend to think of the release as the end point. And so they've put all this work and these years and tens of millions of dollars into things that players, the way they play MMOs, are going to burn through that content immediately. And you look up and you find out that after 20 hours they're done, and you didn't put enough endgame content in for them.
And yet your 5 years of work yielded 20 hours of
right.
of grinding.
Exactly. So I think that we want to, when we get into this stage of making this sort of game, we're going to want to be able to focus our years of effort on building the community as on the basis of responding to what they're saying about our game. So we want to put our nice, lean, slick, but smaller game out there, and then kind of build it based on what people want and how they're playing it. And I think that we can use our time a lot more wisely that way.
And as that ties nicely into my next question, which is about the mod community and mods for Torchlight.
Yeah.
You obviously made Torchlight to support modding with your Torch tool. And were you happy with how that worked out, with how the fans came through on that for you?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of had, we made it part of our pitch for why people should buy Torchlight. But to be honest, we know that the tool, we released our own game development tool that we use every day to make the game. We didn't dumb it down for consumer use at all, so we weren't sure if anyone was going to be able to figure it out. We didn't really have time to fully document it and give elaborate tutorials on how to use it. So we kind of left it to people to figure out how to use it. And a lot of people really surprised us with what they were able to do with it. So yeah, we felt like that was a valuable part of the experience, and we anticipate that it'll be even bigger for multiplayer, because you can share the experience that you've made with others in real time, and that it's just a lot more immediate and a lot more satisfying, I would guess, than putting up a single player mod that hopefully someone downloads and tells you about later.
Yeah. You've had good luck with modding communities for Diablo back when you were making Diablo and Diablo II, even though there was almost no support. I mean, Peter actually put a fair number of supports into the V110 patch, basically just working on his own. I mean, that was kind of his last thing he did at Blizzard North.
Right.
His masterpiece,
Right.
And I know, people who mod who just loved him for that. And it's also made it much easier for all the subsequent patches from Blizzard.
Yeah, and I think it's cool. I mean, there's people have everyone has a slightly different take on what your game should be like. There's no shortage of opinions on how we could have made Diablo better or Diablo 2 better. Here and there, and this gives people a chance to do it. And what you find out in a lot of cases, they were wrong and you were right, but in a lot of cases they were right and you were wrong, and so you can just get different people's takes on it, and it's cool. We love the modding community.
And speaking of different people's takes, I was wondering, people have had questions about Torchlight 1. Obviously, the main request was multiplayer, and you're addressing that.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the other comments or critiques that I saw, people thought the game got a little repetitious. There wasn't a lot of plot. You obviously have a writer this time to help out on that some.
Right.
But people felt like it was sort of the same, like there was an infinite dungeon, but it didn't really continue to progress so much.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a matter of the scope of the game. It was 11 months from blank computers to a shipping product, and there's only so much that you can do in that amount of time. And so yeah, I mean, considering it's a $20 game, it's kind of nitpicking.
Now $15.
Right now $15.
Available at torchlightgame.com, I believe, right?
Yes, thank you.
I think that's your job, Max. You're supposed to be dropping these subtle hints in.
Yes.
It's torchlightgame.com, right?
Torchlightgame.com, and also available on Steam. And every now and then Steam has their crazy sales, so keep your eyes open for those. But yeah, and it's for the segment we were going for, I think it's appropriately sized. But yeah, it definitely shows some of the rough edges of being a really rushed project.
So what have you added or changed in Torchlight 2 to make it bigger, better, more?
Well, the main thing is we hit the ground running. We're using the same tools and the same graphics engine, and we're using a staff that just finished Torchlight 1, so they're really good at this stuff. So we just hit the ground running and didn't have to ramp up and didn't have to develop our tools and our graphic engines and our pipelines. And, so like right off the bat, we were able to put content in, start honing it. And, it just feels like, first of all, we're taking longer for Torchlight 2, but, we also have a lot more productivity in the months that we're using because we started day one able to produce content.
Yeah, and taking longer is obviously a fairly relative term given your past deployment history. I mean, Torchlight 2 is still pretty much breakneck speed. It's still looking for later this summer as the release plan.
Right. So it'll be probably all told 2 years since Torchlight 1's release, but we also did an Xbox version in there.
Yeah. And sort of a different themed question here, but I recall you guys talking about how you picked the name Torchlight. It was basically you had tons of suggestions and didn't like any of them.
Yeah, we had the company assemble, all give suggestions. We assembled big lists and we voted on them and got to a final 10 or final 8 or something like that. And Travis and I were meeting and we were just saying, it doesn't matter what they vote on. None of these are any good.
Democracy in action.
We tried, but it just none of them were made us happy. I mean, I'm sure they would have been fine, a lot of them, but it's something that you have to say a million times, and it's something that you have to see in print and in every review a million times. So you want it to be something that you like. And so here we are, putting all this work into developing a company-wide consensus and having it be a democratic process, but it wasn't going to result in a very good name. So we were just kind of thinking of what we were going to do, and I remember Travis looking up and said, well, why don't we just call it Torchlight and be done with it? And I remember thinking, yeah, that's better than all these. I could live with Torchlight, and it kind of makes sense. And so we ran with it. And
was that a name that was already in the game?
No.
Was that the name of the town, or that was all on him right then?
Yep, just kind of out of the blue. And some people liked it and some people didn't, but I think generally within the company, but generally people were cool with it. Everything else was polarizing too. There was no one name that everyone liked. And that's the problem with having 25, 30 people vote on something. The thing that everyone likes is probably going to be kind of bland,
Yeah.
It's tough to get, and then the things that people were passionate about loving a particular name, but other people hated it, So it's a tough thing to do by consensus, and I think that generally things like the name of the game have to kind of come from weird, random, brief flashes of inspiration.
It's kind of an interesting comparison, given that Diablo obviously is named after the monster, and
Right.
It was Diablo's picture on the box, and the same thing with Diablo 2.
But the name Diablo came from David Brevik having just a flash of inspiration in the shower one morning.
Yeah.
He came into work and said, "I got the name of our game."
And then of course you named the monster Diablo
right.
after the. But just the presentation, and then Diablo expansion pack had Bale on the cover, just sort of a close up.
Right.
And then with Hellgate London, you had the monster, the tentacly faced monster on the cover.
Right. We were going with the big head on the box theory.
Yeah. And then you've got Torchlight.
Yeah.
So of course Hellgate London isn't the name of the monster, but
right.
It's interesting that you didn't pick some evil Demon Skull King or something. And
Yeah.
that was probably one of your suggestions that you didn't vote on, actually. But
yeah, probably.
But obviously, you feel that Torchlight works with the theme, and it's not this gothic horrible. But
Right.
I mean, it's just interesting to me the marketing of fantasy and MMO games. 'Cause some of them
Here's why it's
So
different for Torchlight.
often they're marketed on the heroes.
Right.
Like you look at like the EverQuest games, and they all have this hot blue, this blonde mage in like a blue miniskirt or whatever.
Right.
And the Diablo games have the monsters. So it's interesting that Torchlight is Torchlight. Like it's sort of the world itself is what you're marketing.
Right, and I think that kind of came because our long-range plan was, again, to do an MMO. And in fact, at the time that we were starting this, it was our short-range plan to do an MMO.
Yeah.
We made a partnership with Perfect World out of Beijing, largely because of their expertise in running and administering MMOs. So with the idea that when we got to that point, we'd have a partner who could do all the administration and running of a giant MMO that we couldn't do with our tiny small company. So I think that when your view is to get to that point, you have to have a world that is important and something that people want to spend a lot of time in and hang out in. And so you don't necessarily want to make it sound grim and horrible in that construct because you want people to spend all night every night in there. So I think it's a little bit of a different mindset when making an MMO in that the idea in Diablo is that you're grinding through this to defeat this final boss monster to restore a semblance of peace and order to the world. But so there's kind of a sequence to it. It's not somewhere that you want to live. The world of Diablo was pretty grim and pretty violent.
Yeah.
Whereas in an MMO, you kind of want to make it more a place that you want to live.
Yeah, are you going to be including bread baking and beekeeping and all those other cool MMO things?
I don't know. No bread baking. Well, we'll see what we can come up with that's kind of fun. But
well, there is fishing, but
yeah, we're doing fishing now, and we might, who knows what we might have crops. We know you might have property. I don't know what it is, but you definitely want to have things that are other than just plain pure hack and slashing. But we also don't want to just do kind of cheesy add-on things. It should augment what your purpose in the game is.
It's not going to be a Torchlightville on Facebook, is there?
Right.
You can buy bales of hay and demon tooths and.
Right.
So I know you're not talking that much about Torchlight 2 yet in terms of specific details, but can you tell us a couple of things? What's going to be different about it than Torchlight 1 instead of just, obviously just more is obviously a good answer.
Right. So it's multiplayer now, so you're going to have other players' characters on screen. So it's important to have the characters be more customizable. So, in Torchlight 1, you had pretty much one look that you picked it and you ran with it, and one sex. So you'd pick, a character class would only be a man or only a woman. So now it's going to be male or female for all of the character classes, and you're going to be able to customize and pick hairstyle and facial features and that sort of thing, just to give a little. It's not a hugely customizable thing. You're not going to be picking the width of the bridge of your nose or anything, but it's enough to make you look different than other people on screen and give your guys some individuality. So the characters are there's more character classes and they're much more customizable. Now the first thing that you see when you come into the game is you're dropped into an outdoor area, and you have to work your way up to the first town. So right off the bat you're hit with, this is a big world. There's outdoor areas. It's raining, and there's the immediate sense that you're in a bigger place than you were in Torchlight 1. From there, the mechanics are familiar. You control the game the same way, and hopefully it feels even slicker and more polished and more responsive than the first time around.
All right, cool. This is more a question for your brother, I guess, but are there any big innovations in how items or systems like that are working, or skills, or innovations compared to Torchlight or compared to what's often seen in other MMOs or RPGs at least?
There's a lot of evolutionary stuff there. Like, so, we look back to where in Torchlight 1 it might have just seemed like there was item soup and you didn't really get a sense of finding anything cool, and kind of punch that up a little bit. And there's little differences here and there, and I don't want to go into too many specifics because it might be gone by tomorrow's build and some other new comes in. But yeah, we look at what we did and look at it with a critical eye and see where it was working and where it wasn't working and try to address all of it. But I'd say the biggest difference this time around is just there's more time to spend on just giving it more iterations and more love than it was the first time around. So hopefully you get the sense that there's cooler. You always should have the sense that you might find something really cool and something that's going to make a difference in the game at any moment. And so we'll just try to cultivate that even more than we did the first time.
All right, cool. Okay, last two questions. Changing speed a little. Are there any other RPGs or MMOs you're playing these days?
I consider Minecraft an RPG, and I'm still playing that quite a bit. That's probably the only RPG that I'm playing right now.
And obviously it's a very simple game. It's sort of a basic sense of how an RPG could work. I think you said like it's almost like the raw elements of an RPG.
Yeah, it's almost the purest RPG there is because there's so little, force-fed construct there. I mean, you make what you want out of it, and I think it's really cool, just the different ways you can approach it, and how open-ended it is. You have to decide what kind of challenge you want to make, whether it's making crazy buildings or whatever it is. So I think it's very clever, very cool game.
And okay, this last question is sort of about Minecraft, but it's more generally Minecraft is you say it's almost like a do-it-yourself game.
Right.
Can you just play a game anymore? I mean, if you pick up a new, I don't know, Dragon Age 2 or something, can you just play it and enjoy it, or is your game designer in your head always? Are you just kind of seeing how the pieces fit together and how everything is structured?
I have to admit, that I look more at how the pieces fit together and how it's structured and how they do interface stuff. So I'm kind of furiously looking through it just to see how they approach certain things and what's new. And it is difficult to try to kind of sit back and experience it like you're watching a movie. I'm definitely looking to how they made it and how they put stuff together and how they organized this, how they tackled that. So it is kind of difficult to just get into the gameplay, which is why it was kind of cool with Minecraft, because there's just so little there that there's not a whole lot to look at. You just concentrate on what you want to do in the game. And so I am able to play that one that way. But the bigger and more elaborate and bigger production the game, the more elaborate their systems are, and the more I just want to look at that.
Yeah, it just awakes your inner game designer, and I have the same thing. Like I can't just read a novel, because I've written enough and edited enough that I have to see how the pieces go together.
Right.
And I assume it's the same for people who make movies or other things.
I'm sure they're all they see is the setups of the scenes and how they're stitched together, and it's very difficult to actually experience the narrative. It's the same thing.
Any other games you're not playing a lot of other games right now, but looking forward to, or in the RPG or any other genre?
I'm with everyone else. I'm waiting for Diablo III. I think that it's going to be really cool, and I look forward to wasting a lot of time in there.
And give a little plug to our friends at Path of Exile. You said you enjoyed you saw their early build and chatted with them.
Oh yeah. No, those guys, I consider them a competitor, I guess, but in a good way. They're in the game, and I think the more people that are making this the sort of game that we make, the better. I want to see the community grow and people to have more choices, so that if one particular aspect of one game isn't perfectly up your alley, that you have an alternative, and I think that only makes the community stronger.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for your time, Max, for doing this twice even.
All right, no problem.
And good luck with Torchlight 2, and maybe we can talk to you or someone else again in a few months when you're ready to give us some more about Torchlight 2.
We'd be happy to.